Another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, hello, everybody. Got another great show today. We got Brandon Crisp, who's city council candidate. What place again? I always get these confused. Place three. That's right. I had your opponent, Lexa, yesterday, and it was a good conversation. I hope you were able to tune in on it, both you and the audience. But there's one thing I got to know before we even go any further. Is your wife, Irma, who's sitting over here, still a big Lady Gaga fan?
No, actually.
Oh, okay.
She is now a Swiftie.
Okay. I remember her senior year when she was in my class. She did a project towards the end of the year, and somehow, some way, she snuck in a Lady Gaga song in it, and it just like, okay, give me a break. A Swiftie now, huh?
Oh yeah.
I honestly don't know if I've ever heard a Taylor Swift song that I knew there was a Taylor Swift song when I was hearing it. I'm sure it's been in the background somewhere, but I couldn't tell you a single Taylor Swift song.
I basically know every lyric to every song now because of her.
If you don't know any Taylor Swift songs, why were you so angry when you couldn't get tickets?
Because I was going to scalp them and sell them for thousands of dollars. You're kidding me? I wouldn't. No. I'd be definitely out of place there. Isn't she neat? And everybody dancing around. Oh, God. I don't even think about it. Let's talk about the sponsors before this goes off the rails entirely. Our Place Restaurant. You were at that pancake eating contest, right?
Yeah.
How did you do on it?
I came in second. Steve, who's running for place one.
Steve McAnally, yes.
Steve McAnally, yeah. He kind of had an unfair advantage, I feel like. I went and met with him at his meet and greet, and we kind of got on a topic of eating competitions, and he told me that he had participated in those 72-ounce steak competitions, and he had, won it 3 times, and I'm like, okay, well, he's probably going to win this pancake thing.
Well, he's also tall. Had more room to put it. Well, that's one thing that Burleson voters really take into consideration is how well they can eat their pancakes. I mean, we don't care about your position on tax rates or the streets. If you can't hold your pancakes down, then, man, we got no use for you.
Well, I think I had 3, or was it 4? I don't know. 4.
But Steve had 5.
Steve had 5.
No, okay. Of course, Gina's Pizza is up and running. There's going to be an event tomorrow night for your opponent, I guess. You can go there and heckle her if you want. No, it's been a pretty civil and cordial election between the two of y'all, and I really appreciate that. And I'm speaking on behalf of Burleson because we've gone through some that have been unpleasant, and this has been an appropriate type of an election, issue-based, and there you go. Every now and then, Otto says he's going to put this show on those screens, and so that that ought to get some people riled up. Who knows? Also, Wild Cigar, they've got a lot going on. They have a lot of vendors coming in the next couple of months on these Friday evening kind of things. They get a lot of vendors from all over the country to talk about their cigars because it's become known regionally as kind of one of the main cigar centers. And have a really nice humidor, have a nice bar, good place to do some thinking. Watch the ball game if it's on, that kind of thing. So thank you, Chris and Nathan. Hope y'all doing well. Also, we have Local Life Magazine. It's out right now. 30,000 homes have it. Also, it has a lot of coverage in a lot of these stores. I go into a couple of these places, like Gala's store at Southern Gym, and she has like half a dozen copies. And so while people are waiting or whatnot, they peruse through it. So you're getting a lot of bang for your buck, so to speak, other than just for the mailing. Also, speaking of Southern Gym, have you taken her there yet?
We actually just went there 2-3 weeks ago.
Did you now? Yeah. Is it time to buy her some jewelry?
We actually met we saw your wife there, and you could tell your wife knew her, but she didn't recognize her. Then as soon as she asked her name, she was like, oh my God.
Well, because your friend Caitlin, we hear about you occasionally through the Smellies in our Sunday school class, and I said, my God, what did Irma do this time? And, that kind of thing. But no, and she remembered you from the wedding, Caitlin's wedding and all that. And so it's all good. Here, I'm doing all the sharing here. It's all lots of fun here. All right, one more. I'm thinking one more. Come on. There it is. All right, good. But anyway, on May 4th, boy, what a day that's going to be. May 4th is going to be a busy day. And what they're going to have at Southern Gym, they're having the Kentucky Derby party. Gala really is into the Kentucky Derby and equestrian sports. In fact, this event from 3 to 7 at Southern Gym has a theme for the Kentucky Derby, but also it's going to be a fundraiser for Wings of Hope, which is an equestrian therapy type of group. Apparently that people with maybe PTSD or other type of issues such as that, they respond well to this kind of therapy. So, well, they'll be on the show on the 29th, so I'll hear more about that then.
Cool.
And so they're going to have, bourbon, mint juleps on those hats, the whole thing. And there's a raffle, really nice. I believe there's a really nice ring involved. So there you go. But May 4th is a really...
You just had to say that.
I know I did. May 4th is a really busy day, of course, because that's being election day.
It is election day.
And then on May 4th, you have City on the Hill, which is a Crazy Eights, not just fundraiser, but it's a big event, a lot of vendors. And then you have galas. And then that night is Cinco de Mayo at Vera Calvin Plaza. And that's also probably where they'll announce the winners and whatnot. So you might be there either celebrating or consoling, one of the two, huh? Okay.
Either way.
Okay. Two Maids with Brenda Ramirez. TwoMaidsCleaning.com/Burleson, 817-764-0733. They could do your home, they could do your business and do your building. They do the Windmiller building, and they get paid based on your rating. So give them a shot. I mean, a lot of the B&I friends, and she's one of them, they use her services, and they also use her services for their parents, because a lot of times parents at our age need a little extra help. And so they have used them for their parents and such, and they really just swear by them. They think they do a fantastic job. Also, come on. There we go. Old Pro Roofing. John Williams, 817-734-2756. I did something really mean to John last night. I'm watching the news, and they had this massive hailstorm in Arlington, Virginia, right outside of D.C. So I texted him and said, hey, John, there's a big hailstorm in Arlington. In the next post, Arlington, Virginia, that is. And so he didn't think that he's laughing, but he said, well, there'll be time for retribution. Anyway, it's a good time to get your roof inspected, because you wait till it rains and you find out you have a leak, then you got a problem. You may have water damage. And I got a friend that takes care of that with Stop Restoration. But I'm just saying, you need to know if your roof is in good shape. I get my roof inspected once a year through these guys, and it's, he'll tell you what's going on. You got a leak? You don't got a leak. You need a new roof? You don't need a new roof. He's not going to upsell you or make you think your house is falling down. Any of that business. Also, Sammy Campbell, Candy Gal, over at Camco, mortgage brokers. They work for multiple different brokerages, and so you do get a lot of choice into what you can have to choose from. It's not just one company's brokerage rates, and that's it. They shop for you and what you want best, and depending on your situation, things of that nature. They've been doing it a long time. They've done 2 refinancing for me. We did little roof repairs and other repairs long time ago, before I knew Old Pro, and also for school expenses. 817-778-4592 will get you Sammy Campbell, who's well known in this field, and her partner here, Candy Gal, 817-925-2661. Now, our newest one, Jeff Kelly. I'm going to make sure I do it right, because yesterday I kind of goofed up on it. Make sure I say it correctly. But Jeff Kelly is a local realtor. His cell is 817-781-0546. His office number, 817-720-6300. And he's working with the Wethington Agency. See, I remember this time. So he's with the Wethington Agency. They're on 141 Northwest Winfro, Suite 113. So they're here in town. The website, sellingthe817.com. Jeff is going to be on the show. We talking about kind of more or less within a month, when all this, the nonprofits and the campaigns are done. But anyway, so give Jeff a call there at 817-781-0546 with the Wethington Agency. There you go. So I made sure that was in there. Anyway, let's talk about a few things. You went to the city council meeting last night, I assume.
I did.
What'd you learn?
A lot of things. There were quite a few rezoning applications. One for craft masters.
Well, that's a big thing coming.
That is a big thing. They kind of showed a little bit more of the planned elevation and the planned facade. Looks really nice. But they approved rezoning 70.85 acres to a planned development for a commercial trade school.
That's what being on the city council is about, isn't it? It's not about what's your opinion on, what's going on in the Middle East, whatever else. You may have your own opinions, but that has nothing to do with what city councils really are about. Are you getting that, though, in a sense? Like, what's your position on, the flat tax, or what your opinion about Mr. Biden or Mr. Trump or that kind of thing?
All the time.
What do you tell them?
All the time.
What do you tell them?
Yeah. So one of the things I like to tell them is that there's really no Republican or Democratic way to fix a road. And that's as a city council member, you're not really making policies that affect the nation as a whole or any societal issues. I'm fixing roads. I'm making sure you have water. And there's one right way to do that.
And the thing is, you look at some of the cities, particularly in the Midwest or Northeast, where you have mayors thinking that's their platform is to be, policy issue directors, like in New York or Chicago, and their cities are poorly run.
Yeah.
They're very poorly run.
I love that Burleson does nonpartisan.
Well, Texas as a whole does it.
Yeah. And I love that because my, back where I originally grew up in North Georgia, it was all, you had to declare a party, which as, like a county commissioner, it doesn't really matter, but it would definitely always cause some sort of an argument every year.
Right. And, so when people try to intrude national politics into local races, it distorts them because, this has happened a couple times, unfortunately, in the last couple of elections that, like Ronnie Johnson, who, if you've met him, you'll know he's no Democrat, but they accused him of being one, as if that's like, accusing him of being a communist almost. Well, my dad would think
almost going back to what the 1950s,
something like that. My dad would think communism and Democrats are about the same, but that's a different story. But anyway, the point is that I'm glad that this hasn't happened. Your opponent, Ms. Bedeker, has said the same thing, that they've asked her political leanings, and she's kind of like, doesn't matter, really doesn't,
Yeah, and that's like I said, that's what I keep telling them. It doesn't really matter, but everybody keeps insisting.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
it really is. But anyway, back to the meeting. That Craft Masters is going to be a game changer.
Yeah,
and not just in terms of added prominence to Burleson and jobs and all that, but infrastructure.
Yep.
Okay, and that's a real big deal.
It is a big deal.
Okay, and I'm sure that now that you've been a candidate, you have had to study a lot about that, right? I mean, it's not something you just pick up.
Diving into a lot of different things. And yeah, that's that whole area on that side of Burleson. There's a whole master plan to turn that into a huge development, thousands of houses, a whole. Some people like to call it a new downtown area, which kind of sets some people off, like they're going to abandon Old Town. But if you're going to have 3,000 plus houses in an area, you probably want some sort of community area. But then, Craft Masters, they're talking about like, hospital, some kind of attaché of a hospital. Just everything over there. Well,
one of the things I do know that the council has been stressing on the last 2-3 terms is trying to maintain a community aspect, even though we're growing so fast.
Yep.
And that this new West development may end up being kind of its own subunit within the community, its own sub-community.
Yeah.
And you'd have like pockets of different groupings like you have in major cities. And they really want to make sure that we're all on the same page kind of thing, on the same team. We're all part of Burleson, not this part of Burleson, that part of Burleson, and whatever else. And so they've been striving pretty hard about that. So, yeah, you've had a lot of, shall we say, feedback, helpful, constructive criticism about moving City Hall to the west or the libraries or whatever else. And, and some people are opposed to that. What's your view on that?
So whenever I think about the, different segments of the city, one of the things I think about is where we used to live before we moved to Burleson, which was up in Frisco. And as you know, Frisco has exploded.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's over 230,000 people, I think, at this point.
Me still, because I grew up in Plano, and Frisco was just a map reference.
Yeah, and it's huge now. But there is a part of Frisco which is kind of reminiscent of Burleson's Old Town, which even for a city of 200,000 people, that area feels just like a home. We would go there all the time, and there was a pizza place that we would go to in just I don't remember what they called it. I think they call it Main Street, Frisco. But just a city that size can maintain having an area like that. Yeah, there's some pockets of Frisco that probably feel a little bit separate. It's kind of, when you have 200,000 people, you really don't really want all 200,000 people to go to, the Main Street at the same time. But you still maintain that. And I think that even as we grow as a city, we can maintain Old Town feeling as homey and as nice and, just as a great place that it currently is. I think we can maintain that.
I hope so, because when I mentioned a group in Plano, they have tried to recreate downtown, and there's several really nice little joints there in downtown Plano, but that's like a block and a half long.
Yep.
You go to West Plano, it's like a whole nother world, and I don't even know if those two communities ever interact with each other.
Yeah. Not Frisco, but Plano. Plano did feel just like a bunch of different cities in one.
Well, Jackie Jones is going to ask about homeless, and I was going to ask you about that as well, so I will get to that. But what she asked here is, this weekend there were a lot of homeless people on the McAllister Bridge and in front of Best Buy. What ideas do you have to help the homeless situation? All right, Jackie, I'm not going to put you off, but we will ask this question. But I would like to finish about the infrastructure business, and also the dealing with the expansion. It's one of the problems of expansion is expense.
Yep.
And there's a lot of needs. There's a great number of needs with not just that craft masters, but everything else coming in: streets, sewage, and all that, the water. And as we grow, we're going to need more first responders and all that. How are you going to maintain that without having to raise the tax rates? Now, the tax payments are going to go up because of valuations.
Yeah.
You have nothing to do with that. But how are you going to do this without either taking on more debt or raising the tax rates?
I mean, it's going to be a balancing act, right?
Mm-hmm.
You asked a question yesterday to Alexa about, can you take tax rate increases off the table? And I don't think I don't want to. That's not my goal to raise taxes, but we can't realistically keep saying that we're going to every single year lower it. We don't know. We keep getting in situations in this city where we seem to have a very low amount of funds available. We have at this point, our debt capacity is incredibly low, which essentially is our credit limit. It's really low. And it's because, our revenues, even though they're going up because of the valuations of the homes going up, kind of overall they're going down. And it's going to be one of those balancing acts that we have to figure out. Are we going to look at taxes, or are we going to look at, canceling some projects and moving them to others? And that's, in my opinion, that's not incredibly fair to some citizens to cancel some projects. But it's just the reality of where we're at. That might have to be what we do.
Bill Janish asks, there's not one city-owned building that won't need to be upgraded within the next 10 years. Most are undersized currently. I'm particularly the police department, that's been a big issue. And I was going to get to that in a few minutes. But as far as all these other projects, the hardest part about being a member of the council or school board is telling people no. And particularly when you either know them personally and know they're sincere and know what they're asking for is important, or you yourself also think it's really important as well, you're going to have to make these kind of hard cuts. And my view from a outside point is they look at things like parks as a luxury item or something like that. How are you going to, if they let's say, okay, we're going to take X amount of money from parks and put it into this other project, they're not going to take it well. What would you tell them when they email you, call you, tackle you in the Walmart, whatever?
I hope they don't tackle me in Walmart.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. A lot of people look at parks as kind of like a luxury thing. Parks, though, also serve a really good purpose, and
I believe that absolutely.
Bringing not only does it make your community feel nicer and safer, but it just in general increases the appeal of the community. So I don't necessarily look at them as luxury items, but it does seem to be where the council itself, or at least in the past, I couldn't speak too much to the current council, but in the past, it seems like that's where they would always take funds from. It was like, oh, yeah, we're not going to improve this park because we need to put more money, to add a sidewalk or whatever. And it's one of those things that if it comes down to that's what we have to do, and if I have to, tell somebody I'm sorry, then that is one of those things that I have to do. I have to take the flack for it. And I know that we can't make everybody happy, but at the end of the day, the goal as a council member is to bring as much quality of life improvements and upgrades to as many citizens as possible. And if we unfortunately have to do something that prohibits increasing a park that may benefit 15 people, but we can widen a road that can, benefit 10,000 people.
I get it, and that's the trade-offs one has to make. But it's one of the harder parts of the job, and particularly in a town like this, we may be growing, but we still have a lot of personal relationships that drive a lot of our decision making, and that's it's going to be tough, to tell people and care about. I'm sorry, I can't help you, and I just I always ask the candidate, are you prepared to do that? Because if they're not, then they're going to have a really hard time, because sooner or later the math reality will catch up with you. And from what I understand, this is just, observations and listening to people talk and checking out Sarah Carlson's page and such as that. We have a lot of bills that we are kind of hoping that just kind of go away, but sooner or later those bills are going to come due. And we're going to have a situation where we're going to have to make some pretty drastic decisions, either revenue raising or expense cutting, or probably some combination of both.
Yep.
And you're going to be taking on a pretty tough job.
Yep. And coming in at the perfect time for that.
Yeah, you are. No.
But yeah, I mean, it's just the reality. Tough decisions are going to have to be made. And like I said, if I can at least help somebody, and that means I have to take flack from some other person, then I mean that's what it is. I can't please everybody. I want to make as many people happy as I can. I would love to make everybody happy, but
yeah, well, who wouldn't?
that's just not going to happen.
Well, the thing is, Sherry Scott's really involved in this, and she'll tell you that sales tax supports the parks.
Yep.
But if you have a situation where business is being cut back because of other expensive items coming up, other taxes going up, et cetera, you may have a little less sales tax to work with.
Yep.
And so it's all, money. It's like money is maybe fungible, but there's only so much to move around. And I'm not really concerned that we're going to be in a situation like New York City or state of California, whatever, they're running these massive deficits. But I just think we're going to have a reckoning as a community that, okay, this is what happens when we grow. There's a reason why we're here. If we want to maintain that reason why we're here, why did we move here in the first place? We're going to have to make these hard decisions and live with them, and not resort to, pissing matches on Facebook, to be frank. I'm sorry, I offended Delicate Flower over here. Yeah, but you get these guys on Facebook and they want to rock and roll on it and make a big deal out of things, and that's not helping.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, you've alluded to it several times that, myself and Alexa, we've had a very amicable campaign, and that's what I think. That's what I think the citizens deserve. That's what I think. That's what I think Alexa deserves. And I hate whenever there's any kind of anger or apathy trying to be injected into anything to do with this campaign, because at the end of the day, both her and I are doing this because we want to make lives better for as many people as possible. At no point, at least from my communications with her, listening to her, at no point do either of us have any sort of ill will or any kind of ill intent to get in this position and try to rock the boat.
Right.
That's not what we want to do.
No, and we've had some of that in the past where we had council members who are using it as a platform to grind a few axes or whatever else, but that's in the past, I hope. As far as other issues, and Jackie referred to this earlier about the homeless situation, I talk to the nonprofits on this show quite often and off the air too, and they are getting slammed. All right. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I went to both Harvest House and Promises, and because I felt compelled to help out a little bit, and they have some food on the shelves now because people have responded. But last week was tough. I mean, they were getting down to the point where they were going to have to tell people no, or at least not as much.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. Also, the homeless issue is one that they deal with a lot, and now we're starting to see some of the evidences of homelessness that you see like under the bridges in Fort Worth near Lancaster. I hear things that over by Chisenhall Park, there's like a little tent city going on over there. I do see the guys on McAllister and on 1187. I have seen them here in town, not like as frequently as I saw them last time I went to downtown Fort Worth. I was surprised.
Yeah.
Is there a role for the city in dealing with this issue?
I hope so. I mean, there's when you look around at solutions, there's 1,000 different ideas on how to fix or at least help mitigate homelessness. So what I'm actually doing to try to really get very well informed on this is I'm reaching out. I have a friend in local government. You know who we're talking about. And I'm reaching out to other jurisdictions and other cities in the Metroplex to really see what they're doing. I actually have a call tomorrow that I'm going to meet with the Director of Community Services of Denton to see what they're doing for their homeless issue. And my goal is to really understand how other cities in the area are helping their homeless population, what the government's doing to help their homeless population. So maybe can come up with like a best of both worlds solution to help solve it. Fixing it is going to be expensive,
and it's more of a national problem than
it's a national. I mean, the reasons. If you get to the root reasons why homelessness is going up, I mean, it is a more national kind of macroeconomic thing.
You don't know how hard it is for me to sit here and not go Biden. But anyway, but I'm doing my best.
Yeah. I mean, it's just there's so many reasons.
It's a very complex problem that predates any current administration and has been for a long time.
Yep.
I remember when I was a young man in my 20s, they were talking about this as being a big problem in the 80s.
Yep.
So it's always been with us.
And it always will be, unless we somehow figure out how to live in a utopia, which is not going to happen. I think just a part of capitalism in general is going to result in some people being left behind and some people having to experience that, which is unfortunate. But I think governments in general can help mitigate that,
including a local city government like ours.
Yeah.
Well, see, I'm going to take the opposing side because I know what they're saying, and it's not totally illegitimate. Like if we had a city-sponsored shelter, where would we put it? That over there, no, because you don't want it near businesses, you don't want it near schools, you don't want it near families, whatever. So what are you going to? You'd have the not in my backyard routine.
Yep.
I wouldn't want one next door. No one would want one next door. Okay, so I can't say well they're just going to have to live with it because that's a problem. Also, I have heard a couple people say if you offer more services, you attract more people needing those services. And you become a magnet for it. Is that your view?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I know it's a completely different situation in the city, and I'm not suggesting we would ever do this. Mm-hmm. But Denver just experienced experimented with giving any family experiencing homelessness a stipend of $1,000 a month. Yeah, it's a lot. I would never. We can't afford this. I don't want to do this. But what they found was that it actually resulted in a lot fewer people coming over the next several months because they were able to kind of get themselves back on their feet.
Well, if you propose that $1,000 a month,
I will not. I will not be doing that.
No. Well, because
that's the thing is that like local governments can help, but it's expensive. And with what we spoke about just a few minutes ago with, Burleson having, kind of less funds than we would like to have, it's going to be hard to kind of do that balancing act.
Well, it is because most people, have a humane approach, even though their approach may be different. They come from a place that they want to do the right thing. They're not being harsh, but a lot of people don't understand or realize about the homeless is that a lot of these people work in our community.
Yep.
The homeless doesn't mean transient. It
No,
means
and-
quite often it means they're working at a local store or whatever, but they don't make enough money, or they got thrown out of the apartment because their rent went up $300 a month.
Yeah, I mean,
that kind of thing.
that's one thing about homelessness that I really dislike, is that the attitude towards homelessness is that everybody immediately, not everybody, but a lot of people immediately assume that if they see a homeless person, that they're a villain. They're
A bum.
They're a bum. They're gonna do criminal acts.
And would you say that's possible?
I mean, whenever anybody, I think
Mm-hmm.
anybody, if you're put into a position where, you are having trouble feeding your family,
Mm-hmm.
I think anybody might resort to doing
Well, that's not
something.
really what I meant. It's not so much like a crime of desperation, but a lot of people are hesitant to give homeless people money because they might be enabling their alcohol problem.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Now, if as far as a guy who's in desperation, need to feed his children, it's like that. What's that book, Les Miserables, where the guy sold a loaf of bread to feed his family and he got chased for 30 years?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a bit extreme, but whatever. But as far as, our community here, we are really generous. So the nonprofits will tell you. But it is a hard pull for the churches and for the nonprofits to deal with all these problems.
Yep.
And as far as having the city involved with it, there's a lot of discussion that needs to be had, and those concerns are legitimate.
Yeah. And that's again, that's why I'm meeting with other cities, just to see what they're doing, because we it's something we should figure out and something we should at least try to help. And if it's that means helping our nonprofits be able to assist the homeless better, or if we take a more direct approach. I don't know yet what that looks like.
Well, Bill mentions about the Harvest House and the food drives and the schools and BISD that do food drives. I know I was participating in those when I was at BHS, but I just think the problem is growing to the point where it's going to be something that the city's going to have to deal with, whether they want to or not, whether we have the money or not. And
It's kind of like you said, running from the bills.
Yeah,
I mean,
well, it's
eventually
coming.
it's going to be at a critical mass if
Yeah.
it keeps growing.
yes, and it's not just Burleson, certainly. I mean, I was talking to the Elizabeth Becker over at House of Hope, which is about a block from here, and they have the same stories.
Yeah.
Same thing. And a lot of the time, the homeless people, like I mentioned, have jobs. The reason they're homeless is they had a medical expense that they couldn't handle, or their rent went up, or utilities are up. And then I'm driving here, and the gas is like a very high. And we can we can get into all the national politics. Who cares? Because really what it boils down to is that this is what's affecting the people.
Yeah, it's affecting everybody.
Yeah.
My wife and I have said several times, I mean, a lot of people probably don't realize how close they are to being in this same situation. They're one bad medical expense away, one, job layoff away.
Car repair.
From being in the same situation. And that's where I go back to, I don't believe we should always immediately villainize them, because if you were to get in that situation, you would want somebody to help you out. And so that's kind of where I'm.
You want to help, but
It's hard.
It is. It's a hard and complex question. Jackie says this isn't just a homeless problem. Many in our community are struggling to afford food. The blessing boxes empty faster than we can fill them. You're familiar with blessing boxes, right?
am.
Okay, and
Yeah,
Sherry
Sherry,
Scott,
yeah.
right? And they're right. I've seen this more than once. Them said they'll put them in the morning, and then they'll be gone within a couple hours. And like when I mentioned earlier, I went by those Promises in Harvest House. There was a full lobby, and you want to do the best you can, but it's pretty tough. And sooner or later it's going to come up on the agenda of the city council. I'm going to move on from this topic now, but it's going to come on the agenda of the city council where they're going to have to deal with this as
I think
a
they're
community.
talking about something on it this Thursday.
Okay.
From what I've heard, I don't know the specifics about it, but
Well, that's good. Let's switch over to something that Bill mentioned earlier about the undersized buildings. The biggest issue really is the police department expansion.
Yep.
Now, as you were well aware, a couple of months ago, they voted to increase from 42 to 48, but a lot of people wanted the 52. All right, $1 million I'm talking about. It was a 5-2 vote to raise it some, but not all the way. Now, if you're on the council, how would you have voted?
So that's a complex question. One of the things that I want to make sure that I'm doing, if I, were to be elected by the citizens, is to make sure that I go to the police and hear what they believe they need. I mean, there's a lot of talking to them, a lot of conversations, but I think there's a big difference between listening and hearing. And you can listen to them and they'll say, yeah, we definitely would need an expansion. But if you talk to them further, maybe they're like, maybe we would be, maybe we're actually good with this number. And instead of you just going, and saying, I think this is the good number because, it's a bigger number, or I think it's this number because a consulting firm said that this is the better number. But what do the police think, right? And that's kind of my approach to that, is how would I have voted, is what I would have gone to them and said, like, what do you believe that you need? What can we do that you believe you need? Because obviously it's, again, another balancing act. We have to figure out what we can afford, what we can do without breaking the bank, so to say. But at least listen to them and say, what do you need out of these options?
What struck me as unusual about this, being a 5-2 vote, one of the council members, Victoria Johnson, took a lot of the heat for it, and you and her were at the BPOA meeting.
We were at the same meeting, yes.
And I'll let you categorize it, but from what I heard, it was very spirited.
It was.
And what were they aside from the emotional aspect of it, what were they saying they needed that they weren't getting?
So the general meeting, yes, was spirited. Whenever I was there, I was hoping to speak more to them, but it kind of became more of a Victoria show there, because they were asking her all of the questions. Generally, yeah, I don't believe that Victoria knew that we were going to show up to this and it was going to be I don't want to say a bash Victoria, because it wasn't bashing, but I don't believe she showed up and knew that it was going to be as spirited as it was. But I do believe that some of the questions that they asked, it came from a legitimate place of concern. And it mostly sounded to me, and based on my conversations with a couple of people after the meeting, it sounded to me like they simply just felt like they weren't being heard, that they were having conversations with all of the council members, but at the end of the day, what they actually were telling them wasn't actually being translated into decisions. That's what my main kind of takeaway from it was, talking to them. I had a conversation with one of them after, and, I said, there's a really big push to just give you guys a completely new building. Is that what you need? And he said to me, he's like, probably not really. That we would probably do well with just redoing our current building and maybe adding on to it a little bit, which probably would be cheaper than finding a whole new spot, building a whole new police department. And those are some of the situations where I'm like, okay, well, if this person, pretty high up member of the BPOA, feels this way, why wasn't this a topic that was addressed? Why wasn't the idea of not completely building a new police department, why was that seemingly, just kind of jammed through? And that's what I mean by kind of hearing them instead of just listening to them.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of concern about the fact that we spent money on consultations, as Bill's putting down here. And
we did.
And that the advice, whatever, from the consultants wasn't heeded or whatnot.
And that was one of the things they talked about in that meeting, was that, we appreciate that you hired this consulting firm. I think it was Matrix Consulting. It's like, we appreciate that you hired it to come in and tell us what we'll probably need. It's like, but even they said that some of the conversations they had with the people at the consulting firm just fell on deaf ears. Like, we told them, like, well, we don't need, we don't need this new kind of addition to this building. And then they came out the final walkthrough of what they've come up with, and it was there. So they even felt like not the consulting firm itself didn't listen.
So they're basically they were not being heeded at all, but from all the people that need to be hearing them is what you're telling me.
Yeah, I don't think it was like I said, I don't think that their intention in that meeting was specifically to just bash her. I don't think it was.
Yeah, look, from what I heard, it got pretty.
It did get heated.
Yes.
I will agree. It got heated. I don't want to say it got. I don't think it got nasty at any point, but it did get a little bit heated and spirited. But I believe that all of them at least came from a spot of genuine concern. I don't think any of them came in there wanting to make her have a bad day.
Well, she did.
Yeah. No, I know. I know.
And you may have those yourself.
Yep.
You know, because I've been aware of what's going on in the council for a while now, and I've seen some of my council member friends go through bad days, and so that's part of the job. Same with my school board friends. So not everybody's going to be singing your praises. So I hope you can develop that thick hide that you must have. But you know, as far as the police expansion, I guess what bothered me the most is that it was being characterized as that they weren't supportive of police department, and I know that all 7 of those people backed the blue. All 7 of them, wholeheartedly.
All of them do.
But they were getting trashed. Primarily Victoria, we were getting trashed for not supporting the police, and I'm thinking, okay, like we were talking earlier about the budget. If we go to the whole $52 million, somebody somewhere is going to have to be told no.
Yep.
You know, maybe some other first responder, maybe the parks again, maybe the streets, maybe the sanitation, maybe we have to lay off people, you know, whatever. You know, there's going to be the money is like what's that old analogy about air in a balloon, and you squeeze it one, it goes over here. Well, okay, but you still, you know, that kind of thing. But the point is that the has to work within the budget guidelines. And if it doesn't work, it's not necessarily the fault of the council, because I know they have been pretty strict about expenditures and tax rates. Now, Bill is what else here? Okay, the BPOA had concerns taken directly from the words of council from public meeting last October. The words rang loudly. I heard the same words and was more than disappointed. Bill has made his opinion quite clear about this and on other shows and whatnot. But anyway, you know, it's just one of the unfortunate aspects of governing.
Yep.
And we'd all like to give the fire department everything they wanted and the police everything they want, and you know, building streets is just a matter of laying them out and here and that kind of stuff.
If only it was that easy.
Yeah, it was. If only it was that easy.
But no, I mean, a lot of people want to give as much as they can to the police and the fire. And I mean, probably the largest part, if not the largest part of our budget goes to public safety. So we already give them a lot. And I get that as we grow, we will need more. But again, that money has to come from somewhere. You know, hiring 1 or 2 or 3 new full-time police officers is going to cost money. And that has to come from that public safety part of the budget, which, you know, is in part funded by property taxes.
Yeah. And, you know, and also what I think is unfortunate is that, I think the conversation got spiraled a little bit out of control because, I have a couple of friends that are police officers, and they didn't seem to have the angst about it that what one might assume or would have taken away from that meeting we're talking about. I mean, they had concerns, and to me, it's the same thing like when I was a teacher at the high school. I was adequately supplied? Yes. Was I supplied with everything I'd ever would want? No. And I'd either have to learn to live without it, or I'd raise Cain, maybe. I did that before. What are you looking at her for?
Look over at my wife, she's like, yep.
Yeah, I'd raise a little hell about it, but, you know, it's kind of like what's happening here. So that's why I'm not really that, you know, upset with the cops doing that, because I did the same thing, roughly. Is, you know, those people don't understand down the street kind of routine.
Yeah, it's more...
They are.
It's more to your point how it seems like all of the anger, and it's not anger from the police again, but anger from the citizens in general seems to be directed at one council member. which in reality, I mean, there are 7 people on the council.
Right.
And, you know, maybe they don't all vote the same, but there are more people that voted for it than against it. And there was still more than one person that voted against it too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, that's just the process we've set up, right? And the democratic rule and all that business. But I do believe that this community does support our first responders.
absolutely.
You know, could we do more? Well, yes, but then somebody had to do less, and that's just the way it is. And people say, well, what is more important than public security? Well, I like to have my trash picked up.
Yeah,
I'd
but
like
I
to have
mean,
my streets
if we
cleaned,
take money away from fixing a street to hire another police officer, well, I can promise you that I will hear at some point, hey, there's a pothole on Renfro. Like, well, yeah, we needed to hire another police officer.
And people don't think it's just a matter of salary when you hire another firefighter or a police officer. It's the salary is just part of it, and besides the benefits and the insurance, but the equipping of them and the training of them and all that, it's a very expensive proposition.
It's a big expense.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
so it's there's no easy answers to that either. And one of the things I've learned since I've been out of the school system and I've been sitting in this chair doing this show and all is I get a more global view of what's going on. So I now understand a little bit better about BISD's decision making. Do I have to agree with all of it now? No, I didn't agree with it then either, but that's not the point. I understand it more, and maybe they chose A, and I wish they had chose B, but now I know why they couldn't, choose both.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. And same with city council. I've been able to sit here and talk to all you guys, and they would just love to have the money just to, to do all these things, expand the police department, build another fire station, take a piece of derelict land and make a nice park out of it, but that's just not the reality we live in.
Nope.
And,
unfortunately.
Well,
would love to.
Yeah. Well, and because I think overriding all this is that tax rate. I mean, okay. Also, multifamily housing. One council candidate said she's not a proponent of multifamily housing. She's not a fan of it. Apartments are pretty much fully occupied. So, what's your thoughts on providing citizens a choice on where they want to live? The bottom line is, multifamily housing may not be as hot a topic as this election, but in previous ones, it was like a couple of years ago, and in last year, it was a big one.
Yep.
What is your view about multifamily housing, and how should we accommodate that?
I mean, we have to provide affordable housing to people, and I mean, the reality of it is that for people who may not be able to put a down payment on a single family house, renting an apartment is going to be easier for them.
Not by much, I'm afraid.
Not by much, but the down payment is the big part. A lot of people may be able to, pay $2,000 a month. They may not be able to put down, $25,000 for a down payment, or however much it is now. How much was ours?
Everyone works in this field, so
yeah, I'm looking at my wife because I'm like, she knows the answer here, which is great because I get the real estate stuff here. But I mean, that's the thing. Like, part of going back to homelessness, part of the big thing is that there's nowhere for them to be able to afford to live.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to take the other side just because this is what I hear from people who do not care for multifamily housing, that it puts stresses on our city services and our schools, and that whereas they're made to look decent now, 10 years from now, you don't know how they're going to look, and there's no mechanism for the state or rather for the city to maintain or demand certain things of a landlord. And the state in the last session made that much harder because they now restrict the abilities of cities to impose their own codes and whatever else that exceed the state's codes. That was one thing that passed last summer that I don't think nobody really paid attention to. The Death Star bill, they call it, where basically
it goes to just the point of elections matter.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that, and I've asked a couple of your candidates and soon to be maybe colleagues, and they say that it hasn't affected Burleson yet, but I know it's affected some other cities in this area. But that a lot of people, they look at the multifamily housing situation and they say, okay, that's a nice apartment complex 5 years from now, it's getting kind of ratty, and there's nothing to do make that landlord keep it up. Second of all, is that because like I just mentioned, you're putting a lot of bodies in one smaller place, and so you're going to have stresses on community services, the schools, all that. And then you have some people that have a less, shall we say, elevated view of people that live in apartments. And I'll just leave it at that. You know, they have, you know, somewhat prejudicial view of people that live in apartments. And so there you go. And they don't want them in their town. Does that sound about right? Does that sound about right? Yeah, I'm afraid so.
As you know, whenever I went to school for public administration, you know, it's the not in my backyarders, but they just call them an acronym of NIMBYs.
Right, NIMBYs, right. But the thing about it is, we got to have it because rent's too high in Burleson. My daughter was paying rent a few years ago before she moved into house and now and all that, but she was paying more in rent than I was paying in my mortgage, with the taxes and insurance included.
Yep.
And now it's even more so.
It just keeps going up.
I
think there was a political party a couple of years ago that tried to run for president, and they named themselves the Rent is Too High Party.
No, it's Rent is Too Damn High Party.
I didn't know if I should say that on the air. So.
No, that's it. There you go. See, I got it out of the way now. I have I saw that was in New York, but it is too high.
Yep.
But you know, I think we need to build apartments. But you know, it seems like when you zone for residential and you have a piece of property developer wants to make, there's not a lot you can do to keep them from putting multifamily housing on it.
Yep.
When it's zoned that way. And some people, you know, you see what's happening like west of town, west of Burleson, west of HEB, and between that and Hewlin and the extension of Alsbury and all that business. You know, I was surprised. There's a lot of apartments over there, and it's going to require more servicing.
Yep. Period.
And that's just the nature of it. I personally, I would like to have a bit more affordable housing in Burleson, and that would include multifamily. You know, zero lot lines maybe.
There's a neighborhood that they just built close to us, off of Renfro, and those are more affordable.
You're talking about the
Hunter Place,
Hunter State, yeah, something like that.
More affordable, still a bit, especially with these interest rates.
Yes,
but you know, all of that's needed. So you know, you can at least provide those places where families can come to start their lives in Burleson.
Well, we want the people that work in our stores and teach in our schools and all this, want them to live in our community.
Absolutely.
And see, when I moved here in 91, that was a primary motivation. It says, well, I'm going to make my living here in Burleson High School, and I wanted to live in the community I taught in. But things were a lot more affordable back then, even by those standards.
Yeah.
And even though the rates were higher, the building expense was a lot less. And so, you know, so it was manageable. Now, they're moving to Grandview, they're moving to Itasca, Godley's blown up, you know, now Crescent's getting bigger, you know, on and on and on. And it's just, I don't know, so if you're elected, we expect you to answer and solve all these problems, dadgummit. You're going to be able to do that?
I'll just wave my magic wand.
Yeah, there you go. Talk to the wizard behind the curtain. Well, we're almost out of time. Do you have any events coming up?
I do, actually. There is a meet and greet that I am hosting at Murray Bakery on Friday.
I know Ruthie. Yeah, I've known her well.
Between 4 and 6.
When is this again? I'm sorry, I stepped on it. So
no, it's all good. Yeah, it's on Friday between 4 and 6. Come talk to me. You know, have a treat.
4 and 6 at Ruthie Murray's Bakery. A lot of people really, really like. I do. I being diabetic.
She's won, BTX Best Fest now 4 years in a row.
Yeah,
so.
Right. I have to watch what I eat, but I've been there more than once. Yeah, that's a good deal.
I spend
4 to 6
a little bit of money there.
Also, I want to talk about the nonprofits real briefly because they got a lot of stuff going on. Taylor, you got the stuff going. He'll have it on the screen in a second, but there's a lot going on. Like this Saturday, we have the Walk for Life with Next Step Women's Center. That's a great outfit. they really do a lot of great things for not just the mothers but the fathers of these in these situations as well. Lessons, sonograms, health, supplies, things like that. It's like a 2-year program, so they teach parenting skills, things of all that. And so it's a really great thing. So the Walk for Life is on Saturday morning. Also on the 28th, we have, this one always cracks people up, the Cornhole for Buttholes. Look at he's grinning over here. You like that, do you?
I love it.
Yeah, well, it's for colorectal cancer and to try to encourage people to get colonoscopies and such. And it's the Amanda Man Clark Project. It's at the Martin House Brewing, which is in Fort Worth. It's from 1 to 5. It's a cornhole tournament. So, yeah, I think they have a few teams left. It's $100 a team, and they got other things going on, vendors and food and whatnot. But Amanda Man Clark died of colorectal cancer about 2 years ago, and a friend said, we want to do something to increase the awareness of this. So there have that. Also, I don't have a flyer for it, but I know on the 27th, the American Legion's having a garage sale at the Southern Tractor Supply store. And then May 4th, I already mentioned about City on the Hill. There it is. They're going to have like a Star Wars theme. Why? It's May 4th, right?
May the 4th be with you.
Yeah, that's right.
I may or may not be a nerd.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, you have the last few minutes, so tell us what you want us to know.
Yeah, no, like I said, definitely come and meet me at Murray Bakery on Friday. Would love to talk to you more. I've met a lot of people over the last couple of months. And, with my little trusty book here, I've written down as many concerns as I can take in that I can hopefully help you with if you choose me to be your elected official. I definitely have some yard signs left, too, if you want one. Feel free to reach out. I will gladly bring it to you. I will put it in your yard, too, if you want me to. And don't forget that early voting starts on Monday, which is crazy that it's already here. But at the sub-courthouse on Elk between 8 and 5, you can go to vote.
I thought it was 8 to 7, but
I think it's 8 to 5 on the weekdays on the early voting. And then on the actual voting day of May the 4th, it's, I think, 8 to 7.
Okay.
And I think it's open on not this Saturday, but the next Saturday you can go vote as well.
Right. Well, good luck to you. I wish you the best. It sounds like you put some thought into this and some effort into this, and pretty much, next couple of weeks, I'm sure you'll be busy. So will Alexis, so will Victoria, so will Steve, and so we'll be seeing you out in the community and whatnot. We wish you the best, and I think you have the right attitude towards this, and now it's in the hands of the voter, right?
It is in the hands of them.
Okay. And sometimes it didn't turn out the way you wanted, right? Biden again. Anyway, sorry, I just like just gigging Irma a bit.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah,
I know what you're doing.
All right. Anyway, we'll see y'all on Thursday. I have Colin Gregory on from the Burleson PD. He's the resource officer, and he's going to bring a guest. He hasn't told me whom yet, but we're going to talk, and I don't know if we'll talk about these topics as such, because they usually have something, what the police are doing. Next Monday is Steve McAnally. Next Tuesday, I have Victoria Johnson. And then I have Crazy Eights on a week from Thursday with Liz Hargrove. So it's going to be pretty busy. All right.
Yep.
All righty. We'll talk to y'all later.